Welcome to another episode of Nothing Good After Midnight. I'm your host, Desiree, and let's see what fun we can get up to tonight. I've been pretty bad about recording these, I know, and I want to give a further content warning before I get into the nitty-gritty of this episode. I will talk about eating disorders, abuse, and menstrual cycles. So if any of these subjects trigger you and you are not wanting to listen, now would be a good time to stop this episode. Otherwise, thank you for joining me on another episode of Nothing Good After Midnight. So, one thing about recovering from an eating disorder that I don't feel like gets talked about enough is that certain life things will set off your eating disorder and make it to the point where you fall back into old habits, either by choice or your body will just revolt on its own. And for those of you who don't know, my eating disorder stems from being called fat all my life. I was bigger than my siblings. I'm adopted. I'm half black, and I was adopted by my maternal grandfather and his third wife, and I love them for adopting me, but I was built differently than they were, and so I got a lot of guff from family, from teachers, from just a lot of people in my life. And in 4th grade, when I hit 175, I started playing sports and figuring, oh well, I'm going through puberty because I had breasts starting 2nd grade. By the end of 1st grade, I had an A cup. End of 2nd grade, I had an A cup. And the summer between 2nd and 3rd, it went from an A cup, a 24 A cup, to a 38C, starting in 3rd grade. So by 4th grade, I was 175 pounds, and I started playing basketball and volleyball. And even with running all the time, I didn't seem to lose weight. I was still a very curvy child and believed that I was a fat child, because it is what I heard from a lot of the adults in my life. And, other kids heard adults say that, so they assumed the same thing too, and it became this vicious cycle. So, unbeknownst to most people, I either wouldn't eat, or if I could not get around eating, I would eat like I was supposed to and excuse myself to the bathroom to purge. I got so good at it that I never had to use anything to help me do it. I could make myself do so on command, and I would do so quietly that nobody ever caught on to what was going on. And I maintained 175 till my senior year of high school, which at the time was an accomplishment that I was proud of. The lowest I ever got before I graduated high school, I got down to 170, and I lost that 5 pounds in like 4 days, and was so proud of myself. But it came back, so I would just keep myself at 175 the best that I could. And then when I graduated, well, I hadn't graduated yet. I left home a week after my 18th birthday. I didn't officially graduate till the May that followed. Had turned 18 in December following May, because I was going to the co-op at the time, which is a story for another time. But sorry, I lost my train of thought for a minute. I got down to 160 when I was living in my car because I was eating maybe once a week, but that's the lowest that I have been since fourth grade. And my weight has always been a spark of abuse in my life, not only as a child, but even in relationships. I had partners that would use my weight against me, use it as an excuse to hit me, to cheat on me, to rape me. It was not a good situation. Well, I have been happily married for 13 years. I have been struggling to overcome that eating disorder for 13 years. Every time I think I got a hold on it, something will come up. My weight will fluctuate, like in pregnancy with both kids. I got down to a really low weight, would maintain it for a while, or low for me, which for me, the lowest I've been since high school has been 193 with my daughter. And I maintained that for the first 6 months of pregnancy. But the way my body works is from month about 7 to 9, I will gain 30 to 40 pounds. No matter what I eat, even if I eat nothing but salad, I gain it. I just gain a lot of fluid with babies. Well, one of the things that happens and has always happened is if I get too stressed or get too worried about something, my body will flip back into that mindset because that's one thing that I can control, and it's a constant fight. Well, another thing that can set that off is when my periods get too heavy, because I have a history of menorrhea, and I can't remember how you say the other one, but I have a history of having either really long breaks, which is anorrhea, I think is how you say it, but really long breaks of having no periods whatsoever. And then menorrhea is really long instances of really heavy periods that make me anemic, and it's something that I've dealt with for years. In 2019, had gotten IUD put in because we wanted to wait a little while to try for a third child. If we weren't sure if we wanted a third child, but we wanted to give ourselves the option to, so I got an IUD put in partially to give us time without having to worry about, whether I was pregnant or not, or any other type of birth control, because I can't take the pills. Patches burn me. NuvaRing does not have enough hormones. So I figured an IUD would be a good thing, because I know in some women that it stops periods, but it's less likely to stop periods than Depo and Nexplanon, I think, the one that they implant in your arm. And with me, it's a really slippery slope to stop my periods because of how much time my body has done that, and it typically leads to polyps. So I was doing good with the IUD. I was having shorter periods. If I had them, they were still spread apart, but I was having nice light periods. We decided to get the IUD taken out because we want to consider a third, and so I do so, and first period off it, no big deal, nice light, lasted 10 days, which for me, that's not unusual. I've had periods run as long as 4 months straight, and not light spotting, serious periods. So a 10-day light period wasn't a big deal. Well, we did not get pregnant in April, so my period started again towards the end of the month, and this time it was heavy enough that I was getting anemic, and I'm still not entirely sure it's stopped. It's been going for over a week. It was a week late, so I had a little bit of hope. Didn't happen. But in that getting anemic, it made me concerned. I last Monday called my OB because in the past, when it's been that heavy that I'm filling up a 30 milliliter cup in 20 to 30 minutes, it can become an issue really fast, especially with 2 kids that aren't old enough to take care of themselves. It can lead to passing out. So last Monday I tried to call my OB. They were in training is what I was told, and that they would have the nurse or the OB call me back. So I wait all day long, never hear from them. I had some expired, and I know you shouldn't do this, but it was getting to the point that I just was not okay. So I took half of one that should have been thrown out in September of 21 of the norethindrone, which is progesterone, which will help slow it. And had them prescribed to me before, so not a big deal. I just hadn't needed any since September, therefore I'd never taken them. So I took that. Still never heard back from my OB. Monday. Tuesday, they announced in our local news and chatter page that our hospital is getting rid of our OB department entirely. It's gone. Like, we will not have an OB department, which explains why my OB never come back. I don't believe they were in training. I believe they were in meetings finding out that they were about to get closed down, which really pisses me off because I really liked the OB that they hired. Well, that was all the trigger it took for my brain to start spinning out about, okay, well, what are we going to do if we do get pregnant? I live 90 miles from the nearest other hospital. They're the hospital that I've dealt with before. The doctor's office that is there are who I delivered my kids with. And twice now, the doctor that I ended up dealing with, I never saw her for the rest of my pregnancy till I was in labor, was very medically abusive. She threatened me. She forced me into C-sections. It was not a good situation, so I start panicking about that. Well, lo and behold, that causes me to start not being able to eat. Like, if I try to eat solid food, I gag on it. I feel like I'm going to be sick. And when you pair that with the fact that I have a hard time eating before 11 in the morning anyways, it just became such a slippery slope that literally today I have had some toast, some garlic bread, a few bites of sausage, beef and cheese stick, like really very scattered food that I know is not enough to sustain me, because every time I try to eat something, the smell of the food itself would make me sick. I couldn't even hardly stomach it. It was a force. I had to play games on my phone to even get what I ate down, because if I focus on eating, it becomes an issue, which I know is not good for dieting. I know it's not good for, in general, you are supposed to pay attention to your food and be aware of your food. It's better for weight maintenance. But when I get like this, if I focus on it, I get horrendously sick. And that's where I'm at right now. And that's why I want to bring it up of be patient with those who have eating disorders, because my logic brain says, you're an adult, you should know how to make yourself eat these foods. But when you have an eating disorder, it doesn't matter how much logically you know you need to eat. Your favorite foods, which is what I tried to have for supper. My husband made spaghetti for the kids, set noodles aside for me, made me a beef patty and garlic bread, because I can't have the red sauce on spaghetti, so that was the closest I could have. I was going to make myself some buttered noodles, because typically, buttered noodles with garlic and Parmesan is a safe food for me. And if you don't know what a safe food is, I've touched on it a little in other episodes. Basically, it's food that you can typically always get yourself to eat. That no matter where your mental state is, no matter how your depression, anxiety, whatever, it's a food that you can always rely on to typically be able to eat. And I couldn't even do that today. And I tossed around whether I should talk about this or not, because as open as I am about the fact that I've had eating disorders, it's also very scary to admit that it still has this much control over my life, to where it can stop me from eating anything and make me just sleepy all the time, and I have hot and cold flashes, which I get the same thing with my period even if I don't have the eating disorder stuff popping up. So it's just been hell for me for a week, and I just thought better that to come on here and be like, if you suffer from these, know that you're not alone. If you love somebody who has an eating disorder and they suddenly start falling back into their old ways, try to help them remember what foods they can and can't do. If they can do liquids like I can a lot of times, sometimes Ensure shakes are good. Today it was not going to work for me because anything thicker than water was making me not feel great. I even had issues with orange juice, which is typically something that isn't such a big deal for me to do. But be patient with us. We don't want to be like this. And I know it seems like we're being difficult when we're like, well, I don't know what I want to eat. Nothing sounds good. Everything smells gross. Everything tastes gross. It's frustrating, and I'm so thankful that my husband is understanding of this and just tries to work with me and just tries to make suggestions of, okay, well, what can I make you? What can I get you? And he doesn't get offended when he does make me something that I think I can eat and I can't, because he tried to make breakfast and the only thing I could eat out of it was my toast. And so I'm very grateful that he's that way, and just kind of wanted to remind those of you who deal with someone who has an eating disorder, or if you deal with one and you're still trying to recover from it, give yourself some grace. Give the person you love some grace, because we hate being this way. We really do. When we're trying to recover from it, we don't like voices in our head telling us, that we're too fat, that we don't deserve to eat, and all the stupid crap that comes from that. We hate that our bodies listen to our brain to the point that we can't eat, physically cannot stomach eating, or don't feel hungry for days. I mean, not so much now, but back in high school, I could go days without ever feeling hungry. And I survived most of high school on fruit flavored herbal teas and water. So be patient, have grace. And as always, if you have any requests for any topics you want me to touch on, or you have any questions that you want answered, I love listener questions. They're my absolute favorite thing to answer. I love hearing from my listeners, so give me your thoughts. It's brokentostainedglass@gmail.com. I'll put it in the description, and look forward to hearing from you. And if I don't do another episode for a while, I hope that Bellatane yesterday brings you blessings coming into the summer.